The Verdict, a Sidebar production, hosted by Kent Myers and Mick Cornett. As a part of its traditional and continuing commitment to public and community service, Crow & Dunlevy sponsors The Verdict. Also sponsored by Delta Dental, Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, and C.H. Guernsey & Company. Each week on The Verdict, we present an objective discussion of contemporary and legal issues, topical issues that will affect Oklahomans in their daily lives. The Verdict, a Sidebar production.
And welcome to The Verdict. I'm Mick Cornett, and I am joined, as always, by one of Oklahoma's top legal experts, Kent Myers, and today a chance to look back at some Oklahoma history.
Well, we're going to welcome back to The Verdict the Honorable George Nigh, former governor of the state of Oklahoma, and we are going to look back. We're going to talk about some things that I think our viewers will find very interesting and not widely known, perhaps. We're also going to look at the present and take a peek as we can into the future, because certainly Governor Nigh has a lot of insight about where the state's going and what kind of problems or opportunities it has. I want to mention again, as I did last week, the book, Good Guys Wear White Hats.
Let me hold that up for you.
Hold that up there. The biography of George Nigh, The Life of George Nigh, written by Bob Burke, quite an Oklahoma historian in and of himself. And George Nigh comes with incredible credentials, incredible background, and a lot to offer to our Verdict viewers, so that's what we're looking forward to this morning.
Former governor and statesman George Nigh is our guest today. We'll talk to him next. You're watching The Verdict with Mick Cornett and Kent Myers.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
The Verdict is pleased to have as a sponsor C.H. Guernsey & Company, providing architectural and engineering services to clients throughout the U.S. and around the world.
American Express Tax and Business Services. We're accountants. We do taxes, business valuations, estate planning, and consulting. And we're right here in Oklahoma, working with the owners of small and medium-sized businesses. Steve Wilsey and Stuart Meyer have the resources and the experience. American Express Tax and Business Services. In Oklahoma City, the phone number is 405-843-5311.
And Blankenship has stopped at the line of scrimmage. No gain on the play. Leading it 4th and 7 on the Tiger 46-yard line. 38 seconds on the clock. The Tigers have no choice but to go for the lead. Wiggins had to do the kicking. Here's the snap. And the kick is away.
All children deserve a life of hope and love. But sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all of the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. Oklahoma Lawyers for Children has over 350 of the best attorneys and volunteers in Oklahoma County who donate their time and services to represent children. For more information, call 405-23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
St. Gregory's University has been changing the lives of people like me for 125 years. Affordable private Catholic education, balanced with dedication to community and service, makes St. Gregory special. We're extremely proud of our students' outstanding academic achievements and our nationally ranked athletic teams. It's when you help a student build a future of balance, integrity, and service that you change a life forever. St. Gregory's, a community for life.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers, who's going to introduce our guest.
Welcome back, Governor Nigh. I want to just say a few things about you that I didn't say last time you were on.
Be careful.
Yes, I've added to them carefully. Elected to the Oklahoma House of Representatives, the youngest ever at age 22 at the time you were elected. You were a high school history teacher in McAllister, I believe, before you were elected to the legislature. You've been governor longer than anyone else in the state of Oklahoma. You've been president of University of Central Oklahoma for a number of years. You're a husband, father, officer, director of local Oklahoma Bank. And most would agree that you've had a greater impact on Oklahoma than any other human being. Now, that's a lofty but well-deserved introduction, and I can't tell you how pleased we are to have you back on The Verdict.
Well, thank you. That would be one of the best introductions I've ever had. Thank you.
Well, I would alter it a little bit more to say the greatest positive impact on Oklahoma.
Well, I'm very pleased with my past. Oklahoma's been great to me. I would point out one thing in your intro. I did teach Oklahoma history at McAllister at the high school from which I graduated, and it's kind of an interesting way to point out something to you about how a judicial decision changes things without changing a law, since we're the verdict here. Back in 1950, the law was that you couldn't hold two state jobs, which is still basically you can't hold two state jobs at the same time. But the courts had held that a school teacher was not a state employee, that they were an employee of the school district. And the legislature only met every other year back in those days. Some people call it the good old days, every other year. So I was in the legislature 8 years, and I taught high school 7 of those 8 years that I was in the legislature. And I would teach a year, and then the first semester, and take a leave of absence, come to the legislature, go home, teach a year and a half, and come to the legislature. Then, without changing the law, the courts said, no, a school teacher is a state employee. So sometimes when you're arguing over who is or who isn't a judge and does it make any difference, there's a little classic example of without changing any law, the law has changed. And so I did serve 8 years in the legislature and then 16 as lieutenant governor. And the state has been very good to me. I'm very proud. And, of course, governor, my first 2 terms as governor, most people don't remember. My first term as governor was January 63. Both cases interesting in that a sitting governor resigned early to go to the United States Senate. Howard Edmondson resigned early to go and take the deceased Bob Kerr's place. David Bourne resigned early to take the seat to which he had been elected. I happened to be lieutenant governor under both of them. And so the third time I was sworn in as governor, I'd already served 2 terms that only equaled 14 days. So like I said, I had the 10-day virus and missed one of my whole terms, you know.
You talked about the good old days. I don't know whether this would be called the good old days or not, but let's go back a little bit.
They were great days.
Let's go back to 1959. In 1959, some of our viewers aren't old enough to remember, but Oklahoma was a dry state. We had prohibition.
No, excuse me. We were legally dry.
Legally dry. Yeah, I stand corrected.
No,
it was legally dry, but quite wet through bootleggers bringing in alcohol from across state lines. Governor Edmondson was elected. You were elected as a lieutenant governor, and Joe Cannon then was appointed, I guess, by the governor to be Department of Public Safety head, or the corresponding title.
That's what it was.
Tell our viewers how Prohibition got repealed in Oklahoma.
Well, Will Rogers once said Oklahoma would remain dry as long as the voters could stagger to the polls. It was an embarrassment. Well, he said a lot of things. Will Rogers said, I don't belong to an organized political party. I'm a Democrat. But it was an embarrassment for law enforcement, and that's what upset me about the law, is that we had on the books a law that we not only did not enforce, but we did not intend to enforce. And we made criminals out of people who were violating the law, but you didn't punish them generally. Sometimes the federal agents came in. But social clubs, country clubs, veterans organizations clubs, they all had illegal liquor. And Edmondson, it was a rurally dominated state that wanted prohibition, did not want alcohol served. They even tried to eliminate 3.2 beer, which is okay if you can do it. But I was of the opinion as Lieutenant Governor, let's have a law we can either enforce or get rid of it. Edmondson's campaign for governor was not on repeal of prohibition. He did not say, I will repeal prohibition. He said, I will give you a choice. And he said, if I'm elected governor, we're going to make a choice. We'll be wet or we'll be dry. And if I'm governor, I'm going to give you that choice. He got elected. He dried up the state. He appointed his best friend, Joe Cannon, who'd been the prosecuting attorney over in Muskogee County as head of the state Department of Public Safety. They started raiding country clubs. They started raiding veteran centers. They started raiding bootleggers. On any given night across the state from 3 to 5 o'clock in the morning along the entire Kansas border, every highway would be stopped, every car would be stopped by a highway patrol car and searched for liquor. And then the people voted yes or no, and he said, you can have it either wet or dry, but it's going to be one or the other. And people said, well, we don't like it this way. So they made the decision and repeal the prohibition.
Rather dramatic way to bring it to a head.
Yes, it was. But then we did it sneakily, not sneakily, it was by step was my word. We first just had liquor stores, then you had to take a bottle with your name on it to a private club, and now you have liquor by the drink. When I was governor, I signed several laws relating to alcohol. I always told the legislature, now, you can argue over all the liquor laws you want to, but when it comes to my desk, it has to be one that can be enforced.
Let me change the subject. Subject that could be the crown jewel in almost anybody's resume. It's just among many in yours. The Oklahoma School of Science and Math.
Yes.
I'll tell our viewers that that school, which was created by Governor Nigh in his second term, in 1998 and in the year 2000, had the highest ACT scores of any high school in the United States. Quite an accomplishment, yes. And you started it. Why did you do it, and are you pleased with what's happened?
Well, I'm pleased with I'm not pleased with this frog in my throat. Excuse me. But I'm pleased with the awesome, they call it, Oklahoma School of Science and Math. Awesome, it's awesome. Mm-hmm. It gave us the opportunity to give students that were in various schools located throughout the whole state the opportunity to come together for intensive education. Sometimes they may not be challenged back home because the teacher has 20 other students they have to be dealing with. So we created this, that if a student wanted to, they could come here and get a more intensified instruction. They have to live away from home while they're in high school. And,
so it's a boarding school.
It's a boarding school. Mm-hmm. But they are awesome. It is, and I'm very proud of that. It's those people are going to go on and do great things. Our challenge is to make sure that they have an opportunity to use that education here in Oklahoma.
Let me jump in here and get us to a break. We'll have more with former Governor George Nigh when we return. You're watching The Verdict.
Let me say happy birthday to Crow Dunleavy, one of the prestigious law firms in the state of Oklahoma. And our relationship over the last 20 years that I've been state auditor, I've grown to appreciate that law firm more and more each year, and each time we have business to transact together. Their community involvement, as well as the knowledge to bring to the law firm, is something that Oklahoma should be very, very proud of. I know I am. And at 100 years in business, you can't be all bad by doing that. And I salute you, congratulate you, and wish you a very happy birthday.
We are C.H. Guernsey & Company. We provide engineering, architecture, and consulting services to clients across the nation and around the world. Our corporate headquarters are located in Oklahoma City, and we have branch offices across the country, including Tulsa. We have provided quality service to clients for nearly 75 years. At Guernsey, we believe in quality work, and unconditional client satisfaction. To learn more about C.H. Guernsey & Company, log on to our website at chguernsey.com.
Bringing out the best in each student. That is the simple goal and tradition of Heritage Hall. The focus on the individual shapes the educational experience at Heritage Hall. Each student benefits from small classes, able, dedicated teachers, a solid academic curriculum, and exceptional co-curricular programs of athletics, arts, community service, and other activities, parental involvement, personalized counseling, and the development of responsibility, integrity, and love of learning. If you want education taught with pride, then you want Heritage Hall.
Mick Cornett and Kent Myers back on The Verdict. This week we're talking to former Governor George Nigh. Kent?
One thing that stuck out in my mind as I read the book was...
It's a good book. I didn't write it. Somebody asked me, did I like it? And I said, well, it says good things about me. What's not to like? But yeah. Bob Burke did a great job.
It is a very interesting book. And being a lawyer and having appeared in the Oklahoma Supreme Court many times, I was very interested to learn and quite frankly embarrassed that I didn't realize that you have appointed 2 women to the Oklahoma Supreme Court, and no one else before or since had done so. In 1982, you appointed the now deceased Alma Wilson to the court. Can you tell our viewers how that came about and why you did that?
I had a campaign that all 77 counties should be included. Now, when I say all 77 counties, what I mean is the entire state of Oklahoma. That's all races, all economic conditions, all standards of living, everything. All people who live within the confines of the state of Oklahoma have a right to be involved in government. And so when I became governor, I had built on my governor's wall a little cabinet that would unfold, and it had a list of all the agencies to which governor made appointments. And I had a list there of everybody who was serving, their age, their race, and their sex, and their party. And so as I made my appointments, I tried to more generally get these agency boards and commissions and judicial appointments representative of the state.
Diversify.
Quite frankly, it was a WASP. It was white, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant state managed. And nothing wrong with those. It's just there needs to be an inclusiveness. And so I would look and say, okay, here's a board that has 33 members and not a single female nor minority. And I said, that's unconscionable. And so I intentionally set out to bring to every state agency before I left office a more proper balance, even geographically. If everybody was from Tulsa, there ought to be someone from Oklahoma City. If everybody's from rural, there ought to be somebody from the city. I even, on the Commission of Children and Youth, for example, the youngest person was 35 years old. I appointed a high school senior who in 2 years became chairman of the Commission on Children and Youth. And so when the Supreme Court nominations came up, I appointed Alma Wilson, the first female, Yvonne Calger, the second female. Now, there was a group, for example, one group you have to appoint as governor from a list that an organization submits to you. You know, say the governor appoints, but I have to appoint from a list. All judges have to be appointed from a list. But this is another case, and they sent me 6. It was a veterans group, and I had to appoint from that list, and they sent me 10 white males. And I sent it back, and I said, didn't any female or minority serve in the military or belong to your organization? And they said, oh, you have to appoint from our list. You can't tell us who to put on our list. And I said, that's right. When I appoint, I have to appoint from your list. But I don't have to appoint. The seat can sit empty. So I'm sending you back these 10 names. You send me 10 back that represent a diversity of your organization. And I'll make my appointments. And so you saw the first African Americans. I appointed the first Hispanic. But it's important for me to point out that while I did that, I never appointed anybody because of their race or sex or preference of what their job was if they were not qualified. I never would say, well, I got to have somebody here even though they're
No matter what.
No matter what.
Yeah.
No. I would always find a qualified. So the first Supreme Court judge, many regents, any commission that you looked at. And today, you'll see, if you look at a commission, you'll see the face of Oklahoma. And that's what it ought to be.
Just briefly, 1982, as you were getting ready to run for your second term, the day before the election, the Daily Oklahoman said in an editorial, "It's nigh time to retire George."
Yeah.
You won that race. How widely did you win that race?
Well, we had that race for re-election when they said it was time to retire me. After I got elected, they had a commemorative belt buckle made. And we sewed the belt buckle to raise funds to help pay off the deficit. We had silver and gold and brass and all that sort of stuff. And they said, well, what are we going to put on the belt buckle? So they put a white hat. And I said, okay, put the counties, list all the counties I carried in my race for re-election on the belt buckle. And it was all 77.
All 77.
And it was just a way of trying to be cute. I was very proud. Let me tell you, to have been in public office 28 years and then to run for office on 28 years of record and carry all 77 counties.
Could you sum up your years at UCO as president?
It was one of the high points of my life. I enjoyed being governor. I enjoyed being president of UCO. I had an assignment at UCO when the regents hired me. I told them, I asked them, what do you want? And they said, leave academics alone. UCO has an outstanding academic program. It's just not known. It's not visible. The campus is in disrepair. The faculty is excellent, but they have no good places to teach. And so my vision at UCO, I came in and became the manager of, and I tried to build a campus of which the teachers could be proud.
We got about 90 seconds left in this segment. I'll give you an opportunity to face the camera and
Okay.
tell Oklahomans anything you'd like to tell them.
Okay, you tell me to quit. Tell me when to quit, because I love talking about Oklahoma. I think one of the high points of Oklahoma is its spirit. Will Rogers was the world's greatest humorist of the first half of this century and still is known as Oklahoma wherever you go. The musical Oklahoma has an exclamation point after the song. It's not just O-K-L-A-H-O-M-A. It has an exclamation point after it. I think what Oklahoma needs to do is to keep the humor of Will Rogers, the good sense, the common sense, seeing the lighter side of things. People used to get on me because I told jokes, and I said, well, if I can tell jokes and carry all 77 counties, that ain't bad. But on the other hand, I think that we have to realize it is the entire state that needs to come together and look to the future. Our pride. We should put the exclamation point behind Oklahoma just like Rogers and Hammerstein did. We should go out and boast and be exuberant about this state. We got our problems. Let's quit running our negative ads. Let's quit talking bad about ourselves. Let's talk about our strong points. If I'm trying to sell a product, I'm not going to come in and say, well, it really ain't very good, but you ought to buy it. I'm going to say Oklahoma is the greatest place. And I can close by telling you this about economic development. We have a hard time convincing people to move to Oklahoma, to put a plan here. But what people don't understand is I have talked to corporation after corporation who says that once they've sent people here, they can't get them to transfer anywhere else. They want to stay here. Look at all the commanding generals of Tinker that have been around the world as commanding generals, that when they retired, they lived in Oklahoma. And that's the way, there's a plan at McAllister that a company told me that they had to force a guy to go to McAllister from California to take the job. And they had to force him to leave McAllister because he didn't want to go back to California. He wanted to live in Oklahoma. What we don't know as Oklahomans is what we have. And I would say I'm very honored to have been a part of Oklahoma history, good or bad, whatever way you want to look at it. But I'm also very proud to be, I hope, a part of Oklahoma's future as we talk about the positive things in this state. Oklahoma, exclamation point.
Former Governor George Nigh, thanks for being on The Verdict.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kent and I'll be right back.
I
like to offer my most sincere congratulations to the firm of Crow and Dunleavy, the employees and attorneys, profound contributions to the state of Oklahoma for this past century, and I wish you well for this coming century. Thank you.
Happy anniversary, Crow Dunleavy, and thank you for 100 years of providing quality legal service to the state of Oklahoma. We wish you much continued success and growth.
I enrich our cultural landscape.
I help define our quality of life.
I am one of 4,000 artists in central Oklahoma who receive
support from Allied Arts, this community's united arts organization.
I am an Allied artist.
We are back to wrap up another edition of The Verdict, a wonderful conversation with former Governor George Nigh.
Yes, as we said at the outset, an Oklahoma treasure, a real gentleman, one who carried himself with dignity and yet humor all the way through his public life, and still does today as a officer and director of a local Oklahoma bank. Just does a grand job. Funny guy, contributed probably more to Oklahoma than any other person ever. And I'm not quite sure he gets the recognition that he deserves. Great guest and a great fellow.
I want to invite our visitors to go to our website, theverdict.tv. Tell us what you think. For Kent Myers, I'm Mick Cornett, and special thanks to former Governor George Nigh. We'll see you next time on The Verdict.